saying goodbye to Barbara Bush. I'm Courtney Zabowski in Houston with how the former First Lady spent her final moments with loved ones.
I'm Caitlin Corbett, and coming up, I'll tell you how the Bozeman School District is hoping to provide some reassurance on student safety.
Welcome back. Just ahead of 6:30 here on this Wednesday. The nation remembering former First Lady Barbara Bush, the wife of the 41st president, mother of the 43rd, had suffered from COPD and heart failure in recent years.
She passed away yesterday at the age of 92, surrounded by her family at her Houston home. Courtney Zabowski has our latest from Houston, Texas.
As First Lady, Barbara Bush took up the cause of child and adult literacy.
If more people could read, write, and comprehend, we would be that much closer to solving so many of the problems that plague our nation.
But it was her role as mother of 6 and wife of former President George H.W. Bush that was most important to her.
I'm the mother of wonderful children and the wife of the world's greatest man.
A family spokesman took to Twitter Tuesday, writing, "The 41st president, to whom she was married for 73 years, held her hand all day and was at her side when she died." Her son and 43rd president, George W., wrote, "Our souls are settled because we know hers was." The Bushes have called Houston home for decades. Neighbors have been leaving flowers and notes here at their residence as tribute to the former First Lady.
She's just a normal lady, except that she comes with Secret Service.
When they weren't attending sporting events together, the former first couple frequented this Houston area pizza shop that named a pie in her honor.
She stood up for her family. She stood up for, America, and I'd say a real true First Lady.
Earlier this week, the Bush family announced the family matriarch was in failing health and had decided to receive comfort care at home. The 92-year-old will be laid to rest Saturday on the grounds of the George Bush Presidential Library next to her daughter Robin, who died of leukemia as a child. Courtney Zabowski, CBS News, Houston, Texas.
Now, Barbara Bush will lie in repose at St. Martin's Church in Houston on Friday. The event is open to the public. Then there will be a private viewing for close friends and family that will take place today and tomorrow at George Lewis Funeral Home in Houston. In that interview we were watching this morning, she said, "I'm so lucky I had the best mother and father. I married the world's kindest man, and I've got some good kids as well."
Yep.
What an incredible lady.
And as far as she's always been the same person.
Yep.
There was never anything else about it
Yep.
other than that's who she was always.
Yep.
I love that.
And I love that. HW
Big push
held her
for
hand all
reading
day.
too. Literacy
Yes.
was huge for Barbara Bush,
Yep.
and I support her in that cause wholeheartedly. So.
Absolutely.
Always remember the pearl necklace.
And
Oh yeah,
one of these,
yeah, that's why I wore it today.
And one of these days I'm going to learn to read, I promise you, in honor of her, because I struggle with that.
We will all wait for that day.
You help me out, people.
Weather. Temperatures this morning into the 20s, a little on the cool side, 25 degrees in Belgrade, 22 in Butte. You know I love you, Chet, right?
I know you do.
All right, well, plenty of sunshine. We're going to have a beautiful sunrise, by the way. Look at that. Temperature should be into the mid to upper 40s by the afternoon. Fairly light wind. We've got a warm forecast ahead. We'll talk about that, of course, coming up in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Matt. Now 6:32 on this Wednesday. Bozeman School District holds several safety committee meetings each year to focus on the well-being of its students. The recent school shooting in Parkland, Florida has left many questions, particularly concerning student safety. But as MTN's Caitlin Corbett tells us, the Bozeman School District hopes to give the community a chance to help find answers to some of those questions.
Student safety has been on the minds of many as school shootings have become more and more prevalent nationwide. But the Bozeman School District hopes to provide some reassurance and improve their commitment to student safety at their annual safety committee meetings.
The goal of these meetings is to bring a number of educated, interested people together to talk about how to make our schools safer and better places for students and staff.
Parents, Bozeman faculty, law enforcement, and others gathered to talk school safety, a topic with many avenues. That's why the group of more than 50 people broke down into focus groups, discussing topics like school facilities, personnel tactics, technology, and social-emotional relationships, and how each of these can be improved within the school system.
I feel like these district safety meetings are just a chance for us to collaborate, to share ideas, to ask hard questions of each other about what we're doing, about what we can do better.
One thing the group felt could be done better, finding ways to increase overall school security, whether by adding more school resource officers or just simply improving communication.
Some of my main concerns are just that I wanted to see a regular dialogue specifically around school safety as it relates to armed intruders and also other threats of that nature at the schools. And I feel like there's a lot of room for us to continue improving in that area.
So how does the district plan to make these improvements? The first step is taking all of the recommendations from the meeting to Monday's school board meeting for further discussion. But a plan to analyze the district's current safety measures with a safety audit is already in the works.
I think that in order to decide using data on what our priorities should be for addressing facilities issues, it's important to have a comprehensive safety audit so that we know the direction that we need to put our monies towards.
This safety committee meeting is the fourth that the Bozeman School District has held this past school year. Reporting in Bozeman, Caitlin Corbett, MTN News.
Now, Caitlin tells us those attending the meeting voted to hold another meeting before the school year ends. That one will be held Tuesday, May 22nd from 12 to 1:30, and they're going to hold it in the Wilson School Library.
In other news, a former MSU student was sentenced yesterday for dealing large quantities of drugs. 21-year-old Christopher Flanagan was arrested last year for dealing large quantities of Xanax and other drugs in the Bozeman area. He was given a 3-year deferred sentence on the charge of criminal possession of dangerous drugs with intent to distribute. Flanagan was arrested in April of 2017 while a student at Montana State University, along with former MSU football players Darren Gardenhire and Nigel Hale.
In other news, with a busy election season ahead, the election clerk's office got a much-needed boost at Tuesday morning's Gallatin County Commission meeting. With both the county-wide school election followed by the 2018 primary election in June, the county clerk and recorder's office could use an extra set of hands. However, 2 current employees with the clerk and recorder's office are running for positions in that same office. That makes them ineligible to assist with ballot administration. Now, back in November, Election Administrator Charlotte Mills drafted a 5-page request to county commissioners asking for the hire of a full-time election administrator for the upcoming season. Yesterday, Gallatin County Commissioners approved an $11,000 increase in funding to hire an additional election clerk for the remainder of the fiscal year.
The election process is really complicated, and you just can't bring somebody in one day and have them know what to do on the computer system. So it actually takes probably about a month to get somebody up to speed. So if they start now, they'll be able to help us during the school election on May 8th, and then again going into the primary on June 5th.
By the way, this position will be funded until the end of the fiscal year, which happens to fall on June 30th.
And 2 men convicted of murder and robbery in 1994 have now been released from prison. A Lewis and Clark County District Judge overturned the convictions for Paul Jenkins and Fred Lawrence and ordered a new trial. MTN's Dennis Carlson has our details.
It means almost everything to our client. It's the first time they've been free in 23 years.
In a ruling issued last Friday, Judge Kathy Seeley said new DNA evidence casts significant doubt on whether a jury might convict Jenkins and Lawrence of the murder of Donna Marr and the robbery of the Jackson Creek Saloon. At a hearing in March, new evidence was presented showing that there was no DNA at the scene matching either Jenkins or Lawrence. However, DNA did match that of David Nelson. Nelson, a known criminal with a history of violent kidnappings and robberies, is currently serving prison time for a double homicide in Deer Lodge. According to Judge Seeley's order, both Jenkins and Lawrence are to be released on their own recognizance, with Lawrence set for immediate release and placed in the custody of the Montana Innocence Project. He's to live in Missoula in housing arranged by the Innocence Project. The state is ordered to give 24 hours notice before it releases Paul Jenkins from the Lewistown Infirmary to arrange for the transportation of his wheelchair and prosthetics. Jenkins, who suffers from severe diabetes, is to remain in Montana and live with his daughter.
It's very important that their first taste of freedom, and they want to do everything they can to comply with the court's order and prove they can live in society, and they will.
As for whether or not both defendants will face another trial, in a statement released Tuesday, the Department of Justice says no decision has been made in the case. In Helena, Dennis Carlson, MTN News.
Now, both men have been ordered to avoid alcohol and drugs. They have no contact with victims or witnesses in the case, and they have to attend all future court appearances. Switching gears to western Montana, University of Montana President Seth Bodner is encouraging U of M faculty, staff, and students to dive into the details of recommendations to save some $10 million off the future university budgets and to make some suggestions as well. Bodner says the preliminary recommended cuts unveiled on Tuesday are the beginning of a discussion to resolve spending problems, but also to realign the university to better serve future students.
We have endeavored to identify the ways in which we can keep our offerings to students and give our students the best, highest quality education and the most offerings and most options as possible while addressing our budget issues. And the recommendations that will follow are a result of a deep analysis. We recognize that that analysis is not perfect, and that's why this is the beginning of a discussion.
Bodner took the podium at Tuesday's Senate faculty to explain the philosophy behind the cuts and changes proposed by the University Planning Committee, a package which will eliminate or consolidate programs and course offerings and result in more layoffs over the next 3 years. The objective is to stop the flow of red ink, what he calls a structural deficit of spending, which could grow to $10 million in 3 years if left unchecked. But it's more than just cuts. The preliminary recommendations are the action items for a comprehensive review of UM's mission statement and how to realign the university to attract students looking for more specific degrees geared to future careers. To do that, he encouraged the campus community to review the adjustments as if they were starting from scratch, envisioning what UM can become, to plant a flag so UM is a destination for students looking for specific skills. And he's encouraging everyone to review those recommendations, keeping in mind they aren't perfect and are looking at reductions by areas and not by individuals.
These numbers are approximate. Those numbers align in areas. They are not associated with individuals. And third, we expect a very large proportion of these to occur over the next 3 years through attrition and natural departures.
In Missoula, Dennis Bragg, MTN News.
Now, Bodner is repeating his earlier assertion that the financial problems are not a crisis, but not sustainable in the long run. They need to be dealt with in a broader way than the intermittent cuts in the past 2 years.
Story we're going to continue to follow here as they progress through that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy to have you here. Coming up, we look at the most expensive political race in Montana. Of course, the U.S. Senate. Our chief political reporter, Mike Dedison, takes a look at the latest finance reports when we return.
But first, here's John Dickerson with a look at what's coming up at 7 o'clock on CBS This Morning.
Good morning. Ahead on CBS This Morning, a look back at the life and impact of Barbara Bush. We'll talk with Bob Schieffer, who covered the Bush family for more than 40 years, plus Susan Page, who is writing a biography of the former First Lady. And only on CBS This Morning, Gail sits down with Starbucks founder Howard Schultz. They'll discuss the arrest of 2 black men in a Philadelphia store and the decision to have employees across the country go through bias training. See you at 7.